Broward's next presentation is from Janee Boyd. I happen to be Janee's field rep for the union, and for those of you who were on the call earlier, she was discussing how being a member of the union, being a building steward, a building rep, has really helped her grow the past couple of years, and that we've had some fruitful conversations with her boss. And she believes that the culture is just now beginning to change. We all know that change takes time. And just like homework, just because you did it last year doesn't mean you get to do it next year. We have to change culture places, and we have to change people's thinking. So I'm going to, and Rebecca, if you just tell me next, I have Rebecca's presentation. She's going to talk while I present. And I'm going to
Janee.
take it away.
Janee.
Janee. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading and I'm not reading, but thanks, Janee.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm glad to see my president on here. So I better sit up straight. My name, as Anna said, my name is Janee Boyd, and I am a community liaison with the HEART program with Broward Public Schools. And today I want to talk to you about the Broward Truancy Intervention Program, better known as BTIP. So next, thank you. So what is BTIP? Our BTIP process is basically, I'm not going to read this whole thing because all of us can read, but it's basically a partnership between the school, the state attorney, and even some community organizations. The Office of the State Attorney General, Florida Statute 1003, I think 0.26, because the picture's in the way. It provides parents, it will charge parents with a misdemeanor, which is a second degree, and it is punishable by law. However, in the state of Florida, it's not so much pushed for parents to be fully accountable for their students. But I do think the BTIP process is necessary. Why is it important? Because it helps to ensure the rights and the educational needs of our students, that to ensure that we're meeting those needs for our students, whether they're in school all day, every day, or they're coming on occasion. Those needs, as educators, we need to still ensure that we meet those needs. It's just a little more challenging when the student is not present, but we would prefer to have our students in classrooms and not courtrooms. Next slide, please. So my question is, the BTIP process working? Is the BTIP process working? I don't think the present day BTIP process that we have with Broward schools is working at its fullest potential. And I'm gonna touch on some of those things later in my slide. Next slide, please. So chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is when a student has missed 5 unexcused absences. That's the start of the chronic absenteeism. The parent receives a letter for the first 5, after the first 5 days of unexcused absences. That letter goes out to the parent. Next slide, please. So that letter goes out to the parent. Then there's a 10-day letter. Then there's a affidavit that needs to be filled out by the school official. And these affidavits are supposed to be filled out by the school administrators. However, we're talking to some of my teacher friends. They have been instructed to fill out the affidavit report. Then the second step, the affidavit, meeting with school social workers, administrators, teachers are involved for all students involved. And the next step, the third step, a parent meeting will be conducted with the BTIP team. This doesn't always work. Parents are given the information, they're scheduled, and a lot of parents don't show up. Then the process basically starts over again. If that continues to happen, the fourth and final step is that you get the state attorney's office involved, along with the school resource officers and local police departments. Next slide, please. So according to the U.S. Department of Education, in the 2015-20 school year, 2015-2016 school year, there were over 7 million students throughout the United States that had 15 days or more absent from school. And they calculated this as about a 15% of our student population, which comes out to be 1 out of 6 students with 15 or more unexcused absences. And that's why many would say that the truancy process is not working. Next slide, please. So in Broward County, I spoke to the BTIP office, and these are some of the numbers that I was given for 2017, 2018, 2019, and thus far this year. Because of the pandemic, there have only been 50 cases reported, because we don't have a lot of students that are in school physically. We have a majority of our students are online, but also I was told that, I think, Anna, you can correct me, but we're missing about 8,000 students from our district. And some of those students have moved away, but a lot of them are probably right here in Broward County, and we have no idea where these students are. I do know that at some of my elementary schools that parents in the last 2 or 3 weeks have been showing up to school to register their student for school for this school year. And we don't turn any students away. And now the front office staff has even been told, don't even ask any questions. Just, register the student and get them in class. So according to our BTIP office, less than 10% of our students re-enter the BTIP process. So we do have some reoffenders. And also I forgot to mention that our BTIP process is only for elementary students. I just learned that because I thought it was for all students. There is another process for secondary students, for middle and high school, but I wasn't going to go through that. I just wanted to talk about BTIP. Okay, next slide, please. So some common reasons for poor attendance. We have mental health, bullying, domestic violence, homelessness, of course, substance abuse, and yes, I can't send my kids to school because I don't have clothing or I don't have clean clothing. And a lot of our students are out, older students are out because they have to babysit younger students or help take care of someone else in the household, which, if you're not living that type of life, you don't really understand that. But students that are homeless, I will say, the parents are cut a little slack because bus transportation can be provided for those students. But if they're constantly moving around, it takes up to 10 business days for a new route to be routed for our homeless students. So that can cause them to miss days. But if they contact their social worker or their heart designee at the school, in return, that person would contact me or one of my coworkers, we could meet the parent or take bus passes out to the school so that the parent could catch the public transportation and not have to pay for it. Next slide, please. One other thing that I think, teacher involvement, is my opinion, and some of my coworkers and teachers included, that the teachers should be taken out of this process. Teachers have told me that it takes away from instructional time, it takes away from their planning period. Teachers have been asked to complete the state affidavit. Teachers are being called in on numerous meetings with administrators, social workers, community partners, parents, and the same students are still missing school. Teachers already hold yearly, I think it's what, 3 parent conferences a year. Our teachers are overworked, underpaid, and there's a lot on their desk. And it's not to say that the teachers don't care that the students are missing class. Of course, every teacher wants their student present each and every day, or as much as possible. My daughter, starting in pre-K at here in Broward schools, she's in 5th grade today. She has not missed a day of school since she started at pre-K 3. And this was not my goal. This was her goal after speaking to our superintendent prior the summer before she started Broward schools. And he challenged her about the importance of being in school every day and getting her education. So she has so far met and maybe even exceeded his goal of being at school every day. And I'm very proud of her because this is something that she has worked really, really hard for, to be present every day. Okay, next slide, please. So who does the BTIP process affect most? The BTIP process affects Black students more than any other population. And here in Broward County, that would be 69% of our student population, Black student population. Our brown students are at 54%, and our white and other, I just grouped them in together, is around 40%. And once again, these numbers for BTIP are really for elementary students. So you have around 13% of our elementary students are chronically absent from school for various reasons. And it's something simple as parents just basically calling in. If your kid is going to be out for whatever reason, call it in. And that will make it an excused absence, but you still can't have too many of those because, you know, then there's going to be questions raised about that too. Next slide. BTIP does not work. Accountability for parents and school administrators that don't follow protocol. Our state government doesn't make it a priority. Teachers don't have time to deal with this. Law enforcement and courts are overworked. And also, what I forgot to add to the slide, our most of our elementary level social workers that are assigned to elementary schools here in Broward County, they have 3 schools that they're responsible for. So there's no way that the social workers could possibly keep up, go do home visits, try to hunt down students when they have 3 schools that they're responsible for. So I think that's an issue. I was told by our director that more social workers, there's a plan to hire more social workers, and I'm hoping that they do at least take the social workers down to 1 or 2 schools. I think 3 schools is too much for anyone. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the truancy toolkit, this is what we're already doing. Some of those teachers are trying to create a more positive classroom environment. They're giving attendance incentives, building rapport with parents, enlisting the help of community partners early on in the process. Looking at rescinding the student code of conduct book, placement of students in alternative schools when needed. And also, President Fusco, I'm not sure if you know about this, but the data that I downloaded from Broward schools for truancy is dated 26/2017. So they are in the process of updating that information because it's lagging behind. But I will say that between Ms. Reynolds and Phil that are in charge of truancy and attendance for the district, those folks work very hard to try to combat this problem that we have. The Department of Education, the US Department of Education says that chronic absenteeism is a hidden education crisis, that no one talks about it until it happens. But we have to learn to get in front of this and see what we can do. If you see a kid, it used to be they had truancy officers. They don't have that anymore. But if I'm driving, at work while I'm working and I see a school-age child out walking, I pull over and I ask them, why aren't you in school? And I have sat with 2 kids over in the Lauderhill area that were not in school. And I flagged down a police officer, and the police officer actually took those students to school. you know. So I know everyone can't do that, but we all have to do our part. And I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to let me present. Can you go back one slide, Anna, please? So my data research, my information, majority of my information came from Broward County school staff, Broward County Schools BTIP coordinator, Teresa Reynolds, the attendance coordinator, Philip Schaefer, our BTIP policy dated 2016-2017 school year. Our teachers and social workers were more than happy to talk to me about their concerns, the ACLU of Washington. And I use that information from Washington and the state of Florida and Texas. In Texas in 2017, 65,000 parents were either jailed, fined, or had to serve community service because their students were not in school. In the state of Florida, during that same period, only 6,000 parents were jailed, fined, or had to serve community service. So I just think that, as my other slide said, educational neglect is not a priority in the state of Florida, and it needs to. So we need to talk to our congressmen, our representatives, and try to get something on the book and hold these parents more accountable. Of course, I don't want parents to go to jail, but if that's what it's going to take to get someone's attention, maybe a hefty fine. But I do know that this has worked in other states where parents had truancy issues with their children. And once the state stepped in, the state attorney's office stepped in and started fining these parents or making them do weekends in jail. When I was in elementary school, I remember one of my classmates never came to school, but I was home one day when the police came and arrested his mom. And after that, he never missed school again, you know. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Quick
Janee. That was lots of good information. I know at my former school district in St. Lucie, we had an office clerk person who did all the truancy paperwork and got signatures from the teachers and got signatures from administrators to validate and verify. But I agree with you 100% that teachers have enough on their plate. They don't need to be following state statutes. I appreciate all your research, and I know that we all agree at BTU that Philip Schaefer is a good guy. So he's one of the best district leaders we have. So it's good to see that you work with a department that has some common sense.
Thank you.
Quick question. Did your research, and I don't know if you extended it that far, show that Texas has shown a decrease in truancy based on?
Yes. What happened was when Governor, I think it was Rick Perry, when he was the governor of Texas, he implemented this. That was, I think, one of the platforms that he ran on about education, from what I read. And yes, the truancy rate has gone down. And one factor they listed in one of the articles I read is they had a case of one parent that they had arrested multiple times, and she wound up, unfortunately, she passed away in jail. And it wasn't anything that the system had done, is that she wasn't taking her medication. But what that done is that just showed the parents that the seriousness of not sending your kids to school. And the judge told her that she was allowing her children to run her house. So I think now what they do is they fine the parents a lot more now than putting them behind bars. and they have a community intervention. They link the families with more community services, things that are more tangible to help the families get these kids in school. Because like I said, some of it is the parents need the kid to stay at home to watch a younger sibling, or, you know, the parent has mental health issues or substance abuse, you know. And then I spoke to a teacher that the family lives right across the street from an elementary school, and these kids don't come to school. And the staff have walked out of the school building and knocked on the front door and waited for the kids to get dressed so they could come to school. So, but it does work. It has been shown to work in some areas when the citizens and the parents see that is serious, that the state is really serious about trying to educate these kids. And for the secondary students that are in middle and high school, those kids are referred to like a SINS FINS program. I used to work in SINS FINS before I came to work with Broward Schools. And we do try not to take those families to court, but we work hand in hand with Broward Schools. We get all the information. So if we have to take the parent to court because they're not compliant with the parenting plan that we have come to an agreement with, the parent has an input, we have an input. If the parent doesn't follow those, you know, guidelines, then we do take, SINS FINS will take those parents to court. And then that's up to the judge to do whatever they want to do. And some of the judges here in Broward County with SINS FINS, they're very hard on these parents. Very hard. Any other questions?
Lots of great information. It sounds like you're now an expert. We'll be coming to you, Janee, for elementary issues.
I just think every kid should be, I just think every kid deserves a quality education, as we all do. And you can't get your education if you're not there to receive it.
Well, and our teachers are suffering the backlash of those 5,000 children who are not, that the district says they can't find because they, you know, those children are counted in our state funding. So I think we need to do a better job of just finding children and meeting needs. And again, you know, we need a national system of daycare so that siblings don't have to stay home and provide that. There are so many things associated with your project that are other national platforms. You know, we need to have food and clothing and shelter and the basic necessities to our families, when we need a pay scale that makes it possible that you can afford some kind of camp or some kind of.
I think it touches on a lot of things that we're lacking in our communities. But one reason I did want to come to work at Broward Schools, like I said, I work with SINS FINS. When I sat in an attendance meeting and I heard Dr. Thompson say how she had students at a particular school, parents couldn't bring them to school because they didn't have clothes or they didn't have clean clothes. So I made it my mission that I was going to clothe 30 students that next school year. And then that just kept growing. And then I got more people involved. And when I stopped working at that nonprofit, I think I was up to 200 students that we were buying clothes or uniforms for, just to make sure that they had what they needed to start, you know, at least show up for the first week of school with new clothes, clean clothes. And we even had people that step in and do their hair and things like that, do haircuts, do braids, you know, whatever it took to get those babies in school. So.
And everybody appreciates that, because it's all about the community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Janee.
Thank you.
I think Marge has her hand up, Anne Marie.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Miss Marjorie.
Wonderful presentation, Janee. It reminds me of one that I saw earlier this year. I want to say it was from Jefferson Parish in Louisiana on the truancy problem, because it's a nationwide problem, as you have discovered, as we all probably have already known. I want to say that in Jefferson Parish, the students are the ones who get in trouble. Maybe it was because it was high school as opposed to elementary school.
Middle here in Broward is the middle and high school students that can actually be, have a charge filed against them.
Yeah.
But parents also are responsible. So it's, like I said, with sins fins, we don't take the child to court, we take the parent to court, because at the end of the day, they're still minors.
Mhm.
But they, the middle and high school students can face their own charges and fines, but we include the parent because it's the parent's responsibility, you know, to ensure that the kid, and if there's circumstances where the parent is taken, I've known parents to actually take the student to the school, watch them walk through the front door, and the kid walks straight out the back door. So if that's the issue, the school will work with those parents. Then you get the school resource officer involved, other community people. And if that child has to be taken from a regular traditional school and put in a different setting, then those discussions can be had. And then the parent won't be held liable, because if the parent, and I know a lot of parents really try, but if the parent, just communicates like, hey, this is the issue. I got Billy up for school. I took him to school, watched him walk through the front door, and then I'm still getting a call that Billy's absent from school. Because once she puts Billy on that property, he belongs to Broward schools, or he belongs to whatever district that he is in. And then that's a problem if something happens to Billy and mom took him to school and he was able to walk out the back door. That's a problem. If Billy gets in trouble, Billy's out stealing, Billy, God forbid, Billy gets hurt, killed, or does something to someone else, the school was responsible for him. So yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Thank you, Janee.